Well, at the risk of repeating myself, damn.
Another fine Dead and Company set in the books, and it had some pleasant surprises in it. And I like not knowing what they're going to play. It's really fun. And I like that fact that the going down the road feeling bad has become a group singing exercise. That's really a fun one for me.
Yes. Did Jeff? I lost track. Did Jeff get his "Feed Me on Cornbread and Beans" verse?
Oh, yes, he did.
He
Yes,
did.
he did.
Okay,
Yes, he
I
did.
was distracted for a moment. Anyway, I'm so
Yeah.
glad he did. Uh,
Yeah.
anyway, actually, it's fortuitous they played that song because that's a song the Grateful Dead learned on the Festival Express tour and then put in their repertoire. And tomorrow on Tales from the Golden Road, we're going to have a gentleman named Jonathan Taplin, who was on the Festival Express as the band's manager at the time. So he might have some interesting stories about that.
Yes. He's also got some stories about Watkins Glen that he's going to share with us. That's tomorrow from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Sirius XM Channel 23, the Grateful Dead channel. But our primary objective here is to talk to you about nugs.net, which is live streaming the entire Dead and Company tour. And you may be watching this for free on youtube.com/nugsnet, where they give away the first song of each set for the course of these tours in hopes of getting you to sign on and buy the whole thing. And since we're huge fans of this music, we're going to join them in that suggestion because, damn, this band is doing great work. Let me quickly run down the set list, and then we'll talk to you more about what's available. The Music Never Stopped, Into Easy Answers, Into the Music Never Stopped. Tennessee Jed, Here Comes Sunshine, Loose Lucy, Mr. Charlie, Looks Like Rain, and Going Down the Road Feeling Bad to close the set. That was set one of Dead and Company at Riverbend Music Center in Cincinnati, September 11th, 2021, which is also my 27th wedding anniversary, and Mickey Hart's 73rd birthday. No, 78th birthday.
That's right. Although he looks 73 when he's drumming. Anyway, I just want to say that especially a bunch of tunes in this set, but especially that opener of Music Never Stopped, Easy Answers, was just a testament to the beauty of the slow groove. Mm-hmm. Taking your time, laying back, finding so many new little bits of detail and places to insert ideas in this music. So I think the tempo cops have been a lot more silent on this tour, and I think with good reason, because I think they're getting the wisdom of some of the slowed down grooves, and also the band is playing with a lot of real energy, and so not much to complain about that I can see.
I thought they took a hell in a bucket at a slightly more brisk tempo yesterday, which I found pleasing. But I'm with you. The careful tempos allow the music to develop between the downbeats. And that was Bob Weir's philosophy when he talked this down to the musicians. O'Teal told me about this once. He really wants the band to play at a steady pace so that the music can happen and not feel rushed. And also when people play faster, they play louder, and that also is an issue. And dynamics are a huge part of this music, and the fact that they can get so, like, again, to use that extended Don't Ease Me In yesterday as an example, they went all the way up to the high energy, and then they brought it all the way down and just played as quietly as you can, and then they brought it back up again. And dynamics are a huge part of this music and why we love it so much. So Gary and I are with Bobby completely in the play it at a careful, considered pace, and great music will happen.
Indeed. And we have a very special guest today who I think we should get to. We just got word that he is ready for us, and we are certainly ready for him. Someone who has been just an integral part of this community, has been involved with Dead and Company from the start, has been involved with a lot of the post-Grateful Dead bands for many years now, in his capacity as co-founder and executive director of an amazing organization, an essential organization, in my estimation, called HeadCount. So let's bring him in now. Please welcome our friend Andy Bernstein.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, nice to see you, sir.
Great to see you guys. This is so terrific. I love that you guys are doing this. It was sort of the thing we were all waiting for with the live streams. Nugs does such a great job, and it's like the halftime. It's like, hey, any NFL fan knows that what a halftime show is all about, and you guys are just doing terrific. I'm so
Oh, but
grateful, and I'm sure so many people are enjoying these a lot.
thank God nobody expects us to show off our legs and dance with pom poms.
Yes, nobody expects you to do that, David. I want to be really clear. Nobody expects you to
I,
do that.
I understand. Nor you, sir, but let's get on with our business here.
Yes, this is
Head
great.
count. Listen, Head Count is such an important organization. In my lifetime, voting has become such a controversial thing. I was 19 in 1972 after they changed the laws to allow voting at 18. So I got to vote because they changed the law, and I've never missed an election in the intervening years. And I take this stuff incredibly seriously, as so many people of my generation did. And I hugely appreciate that you have taken this up and brought it to our culture, because one of the things that started happening in all the way back in the 70s was some of my hippie friends started feeling that they were too good for politics. Don't vote, it only encourages them. Was a bumper sticker that I actually saw among people back then, and it sucked. Because I kept telling people, look, if you are arrested, don't you want to be in front of a jury of your peers? What if all your friends couldn't be bothered to come out for jury duty? Then you'd be judged by a bunch of people who don't look like you. That's not good. So I feel the same way about voting. You should vote because your voice should be part of the collective expression of how we run our lives here. And everybody's life does affect everybody else. I'm sorry, I'm ranting. I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Well, you're not ranting at all. I think what you kind of touched on at the very beginning there, David, is that the weird thing is that the idea of voting has somehow been politicized. And when we started HeadCount back in 2004, one of our kind of founding principles is that this is something everyone can agree on. We made a decision very early on that HeadCount would be nonpartisan and truly nonpartisan, and that we thought that there were certain unifying principles out there that everyone could rally around. And one was that participation in democracy is inherently virtuous. It's the one thing that no matter what you feel, you want people on your side at least to participate, and you'd hope that you'd want everyone to participate because that's how democracy works. And the way I saw it when we started HeadCount was that there were other sort of universal principles in the dead scene and the festival community: love thy neighbor, the golden rule. And it's like, if we can marry these things, if these ideas were represented in government, if the world was a little bit more like the dead community and a little bit more like the festival world, where people just kind of took care of each other, if we could elect people who have some of these values and experiences, then politics aside, we're doing something really meaningful. And those were the founding ideas of HeadCount way back in 2004. So, or really even late 2003. We're coming up on 17 years. And I look at where we are today, and I think you were kind of referencing this, that there's somehow voting itself has become politicized. It sort of has like a code around it, that it means like you're on one side or the other, or that fighting for voting rights is a Democratic idea, or against Republican ideas. And this is really scary, because this
Yes.
still should be the thing that we all agree on. And when voting itself and elections themselves and how they're administered become politicized, nobody wins. And I really believe that. And I don't think it's a matter of, can you get, can you change the policies to favor one side or another? As soon as you do that, you've lost. Like, elections should be fair, they should be trustworthy, they should be reliable. And I think we've gotten to a weird place in this country where elections themselves are almost like an issue, like it's healthy to have debate about guns and healthy to have debate about abortions. I don't think it's healthy to have debate about how to administer fair elections, because inherently, who's ever losing that debate feels that the elections aren't representing them. And so I think we're at a really dire time for the country. And it's just very important that we find common ground and that we protect elections themselves so that people can trust the system. And nobody wins when you can't trust the system. And that's where I kind of sit on what's happening right now.
Yeah, and one thing that occurs to me is the people who are reacting the most strongly and negatively to the idea of more people having access to the polls. One has to wonder what they're afraid of and why they have to invent myths about widespread voter fraud, which has been shown time and time again to be essentially statistically non-existent. So you have these so-called voter integrity laws being passed in a number of states, which actually have the opposite effect, and that's really scary. And it there's a whole media juggernaut dedicated to perpetuating these myths, and it just muddies the waters terribly, doesn't it?
Yeah, it really does. And let me kind of give a little bit of background here, just to kind of bring it back to where we started with the dead and with Bob Weir, who is a member of HeadCount's board of directors, and sort of how we got to where we are today. When HeadCount started in 2004, the beginning conversations were in 2003. And I want to start by acknowledging that HeadCount was completely 100% a product of 9/11, 100%. And after 9/11, you saw for a very brief amount of time the country was very united. And then it became very politicized, of course, and it led to the Iraq War. And for me, one of the things that really bothered me was Guantanamo Bay. It bothered me intensely that the United States of America would put people in jail without charges and without lawyers. It just ran afoul of everything I've been taught in school of what makes America great. These protections that all people have, and these values we have as a country of innocent proven until proven guilty, due process, all these things that I was taught set America apart and how we led the world. And we threw these things out the window after 9/11. And so for me, this was a really upsetting thing. And what happened was, I was at the time I was a reporter. I was covering sports. I'd written a book about fish. I'd written a book with some friends called The Farmer's Almanac. So I had some roots in the jam scene and the music scene. But basically, as career wise, I did something totally different. I was a sports writer, and I was interviewing somebody, and that person made a kind of offhanded remark about Guantanamo Bay and what was happening. And then I kind of followed up with my own views and whatnot, and we kind of bonded on it. And this was a executive at ESPN. It had just nothing to do with the music world, nothing to do with politics, but we just kind of shared this view. And when I hung up the phone from doing this interview, I said to myself, I got to do something. I got to stop complaining, and I've got to do something. And I literally sat there at my desk, and I thought, well, what can I do? And I had a few really bad ideas. And then I thought I said, well, what if we can just get people to vote who go to the same concerts that myself and my friends are going to? We were, seeing a lot of Fish. We were seeing a lot of jam bands. We were seeing, back then it was probably Rat Dog that we were seeing. And said, well, what if this is the change we can make in the world, just working within our own community to get people to vote? And then I sent an email to Mark Brownstein of the Disco Biscuits, who's a good friend of mine. I sent a long email with the whole idea for the organization, and he responds with 2 words: I'm in. And that's how we started. And then Mark reached out to Al Schneer of Mo, and Al reached out to Bobby and invited Bobby to get involved. And the rest was history. And once we had Bob Weir involved, things really took off, and it laid the foundations for an organization that now is so much bigger than myself, so much bigger than the dead. We work with Ariana Grande. We worked with the Parkland students. We worked with things that are very, very beyond this core community, but at the same time, it's still the core dead community that I would always consider the soul of HeadCount and the foundation. So I want to, on this day, acknowledge that, so many things came out of 9/11, some of them horrible, some of them very positive, and we are a product of, HeadCount is 100% a product of 9/11, 100% a product of both the sacrifices that people made and some of the really things that were very disturbing that came out of it, in terms of people's rights and things along those lines. So I want to start by acknowledging that, and acknowledge the many lives lost in the dead community. And it's of course to never be forgotten. and of course to be acknowledged today. So what we've seen over this time is, as I was saying before, that the whole sort of coding around voting has changed. What I saw in 2004 was that an artist could stand on stage and say, "Hey, everybody vote," and the crowd would go nuts. Like, people felt that voting was an answer. People felt, if they weren't happy with the world, that this was the time to unite. And in 2004, we saw the largest increase in voter turnout in history. It went from the lowest level ever in 2000 to, I think it was like 37% increase in turnout in 2004. So a lot of the things that we did and others did and things people were feeling were really effective. Now, we've now been through, I think, 5 or 6 presidential elections. And what we've seen now, cut ahead to 2020 and 2021, is that elections themselves, voting themselves, are the subject of deep divides and a very heavily politicized and people's own political interests playing out in terms of election policy, which should be totally neutral. So one of the things that HeadCount has done this year is we've launched a campaign called Save the Vote. You can find it at headcount.org/save the vote. And what we want people to do is speak out to their elected officials about voting rights. And I really encourage everyone to do this because it really has a huge impact. And it's really simple. It takes about 30 seconds with a little bit of information. You put in your email address and it'll send an email to your elected officials. You put in your zip code so we know who your elected officials are. And you'll see on it that we're not trying to take a stand politically. We're not getting into the specifics of any piece of legislation. What we're trying to do is create dialogue between individuals, music fans primarily, and their elected officials. And the impact of this is tremendous. And I'll give as an example, you may have heard that just in the last week, a law got passed in Texas that's very controversial. It limits voting rights. It limits certain access to times of when polling places are open and things like that. But what you may not have heard, what's not in the headlines, is that when originally some of these bills were proposed, they were much worse. They were far more limiting, and they were, some things that couldn't really be defended. And there was so much outcry and so much attention on this that while the bill that got passed, a lot of people have a lot of issues, and rightfully so, it's not nearly as bad as what could have happened. And the only reason for that, the only reason is because of public outcry, because of attention, because there is no way in this climate that you can just get away with the worst of the worst. There's too much attention on it. And so while it's very disturbing to see laws get passed that limit voting rights in any way, it's also really empowering to know that the worst of the worst are not making it to the floors of any state houses. There's too much attention on this issue. And so every single citizen in America has the power to further that very positive dynamic. So I encourage people to check out headcount.org/save the vote. It'll literally take you 30 seconds. You can do it while we're talking. And send an email to all of your elected officials and start a dialogue. Ask them where they stand on voting rights. That's democracy working, and we want to be a force to make democracy work. And so I hope many in our community, if you're at a Dead show, you can go to Participation Row and do it with our volunteers, and we'll also get you a free vote pin. And you can visit other organizations as well and take positive actions. And that's something we've been doing at Dead shows for a long time. But if you're not at a show right now, like you're watching on a live stream, check out headcount.org/save the vote. And it's so quick and so easy, and it really does make a difference.
Those pins are really, really nice. I picked one up 2 years ago, and I saw the one you're putting out this year. Those are collectibles, those vote pins. They're really nice.
Yeah, I mean, we've done it for every Dead and Company summer tour, and they're all different, and they usually take whatever artwork the band has developed for that tour and incorporate it into a pin. So this year it's a rose, it says vote, and it's an O with the vote. The rose is the O. And other years we've used Steal Your Faces, Dancing Bears, all the familiar Dead iconography. And each one is numbered. So they really are collector's items. We tend to run out of them. And it's been just one of the many really fun things that we've gotten to do with HeadCount. What I love doing is just being creative, like coming up with new ideas that make it fun to participate in democracy. And doing Participation Row all these years has been really one of the great things, just personally, really pleasurable to come up with these ideas. We first did it at the Lock-In Festival, which is a great festival that Pete Shapiro has been putting on for years. Pete Shapiro is our board chair. And then we brought it to Fairly Well, and then we started with Dead and Company, and that's where we started doing these pins. And these pins are free. The only place to get them is at a Dead and Company show. In order to get them, you just need to take action with 3 of the nonprofits on Participation Row. We also have our partner Reverb out there that's doing great environmental work. And then we always have 1 or 2 guest organizations, usually organizations that have some sort of affiliation with Dead and Company or the Grateful Dead. So organizations like SAVA, that are Rainforest Action Network, that have been part of the Dead family for many years, Rex, and then also newer organizations like we have out this year. We have an organization called the Last Prisoner Project, which is fighting to get people who are incarcerated due to cannabis and marijuana out of jail. We have an organization called Why Hunger that started working with more and more with Dead and Company. So the Dead family nonprofits is always a growing list, and it's all about really what the band members find interesting and what our community is going to find interesting. And so if you have not made it to a Dead and Company show yet this year, but you are going to get to a show, please do come by Participation Row, say hi to our volunteers. Of course, you can register to vote with HeadCount. But right now, our big focus is the Save the Vote campaign. We know most people are registered right now because we've gotten you over the last few years. If you need to update your voter registration, and of course you can do that on our website, headcount.org as well. But we try to have something for everybody. So if you're already registered, there are actions you can take, whether you do it right now online at headcount.org/save the vote, or you come to Participation Row. We want to give you that opportunity to make your voice heard.
Wonderful, Andy. Now, I want to go back to something you mentioned a few minutes ago. We deal with what's going on in state legislatures a lot, as with these restrictive voting laws. But also, one of the great victories of recent years is the gradual falling one by one of these incredible draconian marijuana laws, state by state. We've either now had decriminalization or legalization in so many states, and the sentencing guidelines are changing. And what that tells us is that, we shouldn't just worry about the circus of the presidential election every 4 years. We should be voting in those local elections, encouraging people to know about what the issues are in their state, and I know HeadCount, that's part of your focus as well. It isn't just about registering to vote. It's about educating yourself to the process and what's important in your community.
Totally. And thanks for asking about that, Gary. Our kind of through line, our core mission is about participation. And it starts with voting, but it certainly doesn't end with voting. And one of the things that we look at is, where does voting have clear impact, and where is it kind of align with the values of our community in ways that are nonpartisan? And the obvious answer is marijuana legalization. That you see that state after state, I think it's 8 states this year, just in 2021, have acted on legalization. And this was something that seemed incomprehensible 15 years ago. And why did it change? Why did it change so quickly? Well, for one thing, it changed because of really smart organizing and people in Colorado and Washington and Oregon who were on the forefront of this, California, and individuals who said, in this democracy, there is an opportunity to create change. They had really good ideas around medical, and they changed the world. I mean, they really did. And there are flesh and blood humans who made this happen, and we owe a great debt. For anybody who cares about this issue, we owe a great debt to all of them. But now what we've seen is that every single voter is empowered on this issue, whether it's via referendums that have happened in many states and now almost always win, or whether it's elected officials reacting to the clear will of the people. I'll give you some stats that are amazing. 68% of Americans now support legalization for recreational use. 91% support medical. So you have a clear majority. And, we were taught in school, majority rules in a democracy. So cannabis legalization is one of those issues where the people can lead. And when people speak out and when people are informed and are voting, we can see the clear change that happens. This is why voting matters. And so HeadCount a few years ago launched something called the Cannabis Voter Project to really, really zero in on this and use our kind of joke is that cannabis is a gateway toward democracy, toward democratic participation. If you're completely fed up with the system, if you think that the system is corrupt and no elected official can be trusted, well, you're not alone. And I kind of agree with that too in a lot of ways. But we can still see that the power, when there's smart organizing and voters are informed, the power does lie with the people. And cannabis legalization is the absolute proof of this. And if anybody wants to know more about this, I'm not somebody who just likes to throw out a lot of websites and be promotional, but I do want people to know where they can find these resources. So it's cannabisvoter.info. And what we have at cannabisvoter.info is we have the voting records of every single member of Congress on, I think, 7 different cannabis issues. We also have where every governor stands. So you can see what's happening in your state. We have information on what's happening in every state. And you can also take action and speak out. And we're about to roll out a much larger campaign called Cannabis in Common, where we're working with the entire cannabis industry to create a unified campaign. Right now, there's a bill in the Senate to legalize marijuana nationally, federally. And it's the first bill. This bill has the support of the Senate Majority Leader, Chuck Schumer. This is the first really legit bill in terms of who's behind it for federal legalization. And the House of Representatives has already voted for federal legalization. So if something passes in the Senate, we're going to see that real world change, which is at the federal level. It's descheduling marijuana and also probably expunging the records of literally millions of people with federal marijuana convictions. And there's a big social impact angle here. I mean, the people who get charged with social justice angle, the people who get charged with marijuana crimes are disproportionately Black and brown Americans, by 4 to 1. And there is no difference in the usage rates by race. The difference is who's getting arrested and who's going to jail. So there is an issue here around personal liberty. There is an issue around social justice. And there's also an issue of just, I think a lot of people in our community want marijuana to be legalized just for their own personal peace of mind. So this is one of those things where when we act and when we act together, we can see the difference that is happening. We can see it every day. When you have state after state, this year, New York, New Jersey, moving forward, Virginia, Connecticut, last November, I forget how many states, but every single marijuana initiative won. North Dakota, Mississippi. I mean, this is not a politically partisan issue. This is not a red-blue issue. This is winning in every state.
Andy, we have to interrupt you. The band.
They're important.
It's back on stage.
More important than me.
Andy Bernstein, thank you so much for being with us. HeadCount.org, everybody.
If I can, a shout out to Great Divide Campground, where I am right now, where it's Dead and Fish Weekend. That's why I'm not at the show. You guys, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for supporting HeadCount.
Well, okay, sometimes the right and proper thing to do is to make a hideous, great spectacle out of something. And so we have all the right and proper people here tonight to make a great, hideous, great spectacle of Mickey's birthday. So I guess what we gotta do is everybody's gotta say, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Bye.